Thank you for clicking on this. I'm Matthew Favai. This is Matthew Owen. There you go. He really made you wait for it. He's a real slow burn of a person. And we're talking about PSVR. Obviously, you knew that because you read the title. Or maybe you just saw a notification, clicked it, and you go, wait, this isn't Final Fantasy 13. We do other things on the channel other than that. So here we go now. We're talking about PSVR. Matt's been playing PSVR for a month. He's been playing a crap ton of games. He's been putting up reviews of PSVR games on a 90skid.com. Check those out. And let's talk about it. First off, Matt, I've never put on a PSVR headset. I've heard people say it's comfortable. So long periods of time over this month, you don't dread putting the thing on.
Let me show you, all right? Here's your PSVR helmet, okay? You got on the bottom, you can't really see it, but you have this nice thing that moves it back and forth. And then on the back, you also have a button that releases the grip. So when you want to go into your virtual world, it's very simple. You simply put it on like a hat.
Yeah. And
then you adjust the tightness and pop yourself in. The cool thing about this one is if you have glasses, it's not terrible. It takes a little bit of fiddling to get used to. Yeah. But out of all the VR headsets I've seen and or tried on, the PSVR is pretty comfortable. If you have glasses, it can kind of make an indentation on your face. But generally speaking, I have played PSVR for long periods of time, and I haven't seen many issues, at least with the comfortable aspect of the headset while I get myself repositioned.
Okay, yeah, because I've used the Vive, and I wear contact lenses each time, but I am a glasses wearer sometimes. I don't wear them because the lights shine on it, and then they get this really weird green screen black hole thing. But I've heard from other people that the PSVR is the most comfortable, and that glasses do fit in because it's a pretty sizable thing you're putting on your head.
You do have quite a bit of room, and most of it is just these the little rubber pieces that will block out the light. But all things said, it is quite large. The only thing that I found is when you're wearing glasses, you can't get your eyes as close as you'd kind of want to for that incredibly full immersive experience. So if you have no glasses and you have 20/20 vision, you slide it on, it's perfect. For us glasses users, if you take off your glasses and slide them back, you feel a lot more immersed. But without it, if you fiddle enough, I still have found myself lost in at least 2 games, completely feeling like I'm there, even though it's not as close as I want it to be. I've actually found the most comfortable and the most clear vision of the game to be sometimes not up all the way on my face, but a teeny bit back.
Yeah.
The most important thing is really tightening the headband so it stays with your tracking. Because if you have glasses, a slight movement is what will throw off the visual clarity of the game. But all things told, I mean, it takes maybe 30 or 40 minutes to really get used to it and find it. There's a few settings you can fix with your eye distance, your pupil distance, but all things told, it works. And for somebody who has glasses and has feared using VR because of the glasses, it's been pretty good. So,
how about the controllers? A lot of people are criticizing the use of the PS Move controllers, saying that's old technology. Why are you cheaping out in this area? How are you finding the tracking? How are you finding the Move controllers?
It depends on the experience. I've played several different games that are first person that use the PS Moves controllers. I've played some games that are first person that use the DualShock. And to that, I'll tell you that Move controllers go a long way to being immersive, but it very much depends on how much of the game you're moving around. So like a game like Until Dawn, you're in a seated cart and you're just shooting things that are always going to be at a 180 degree angle around you. Right. You're never doing that whole 360 degree thing. With a game like Super Hot VR, you are doing 360 movement. You're reaching up kind of high. You're reaching down to the floor, and that's where you get those tracking issues. But if it's something that's just within, like something like Job Simulator or Every Time or I Expect You to Die, those things that don't require a whole lot of movement or a whole lot of looking around and doing stuff, it's been fine. The Move controllers are old tech, and the tracking leaves a little bit to be desired every now and again, but it works. Like Job Simulator, perfect. I had zero issues. I Expect You to Die, zero issues. Until Dawn, zero issues. It was when I got into Super Hot VR and those kind of things I saw tracking issues. But if I had the option, I would 100% go Move controllers over DualShock. It's the immersion. When you can see your arms and the one-to-one movement, there's something that really locks you into the game. When you're holding a DualShock, it just feels like you're playing a game with a really big screen, kind of.
Okay. How would you... I'm a bit ignorant to this. How does this thing... Does it connect wirelessly to the PS4, or are you tethered with a very long wire at the back of your head?
So if you buy a PSVR, be prepared to look up install videos. There's a lot of cords to this. I could look down, but so you have the PSVR unit, which is connected to it's a decently long cord, but it's connected to another connector piece, which then connects into a separate box. That's your actual PSVR. That box itself has its own AC power. It has two HDMIs, one that goes to your TV and then one that goes into your PS4. There's a few different things. You have to have a USB plugged in. There's a lot of wires. Moving it and setting it up in another place, even just in my own house, moving it from one room to another, is a pain in the butt. And I can say that several times I have thought about, maybe I'll bring this PSVR over to my buddy's house so they can try it out. And I did that once and then completely no. Each room setup, each different room you're in, and your entertainment setup can make or break how long it's going to take you to set this shit up. So, yeah, there's a lot of wires. Wireless technology would be really cool, but the thing is, there's not enough wires where you feel like you're tripping over them, like I've heard people talk about with the Vive, but it's in no means wireless. It's definitely something you're going to have to set up.
Okay, now, one of the things I was really interested in is this big picture mode, which that's not the name of it, but the idea
it's called cinematic mode.
Cinematic mode. The idea of playing a non-VR game with a VR headset, perhaps just for a more immersive experience, or maybe someone's using the main TV in your household.
Yes.
And you have enough money to buy a PSVR, but you don't have enough money to buy another TV, or just watching a movie. Would you recommend that? How has that experience been? Could you watch a 2.5 hour movie with that thing on your head?
Here's the thing. The cinematic mode has three settings. Large, which is way too big, because you have this focus thing. Think about kind of like a fisheye lens, but there's a little bit of blur on the sides, and maybe that's just because of me with my glasses. But when you're looking at a large screen, it kind of feels like you're in a huge movie theater, but sitting in the second row. So you do have to do this kind of thing to look at the left side of the screen and the right side of the screen. The medium one is good enough where I found that I've played Yakuza Zero for well over 5 or 6 hours in that cinematic mode.
Wow.
It is fine for games like that where you're only focusing on the character. You don't really have to look at a mini-map or anything. But a shooter is probably not going to work. My biggest issue is that
why is that? Because it's too much quick movement?
Because of the blur. If you're looking straight ahead, you can see your character, but if you shift your eyes without shifting your head, the mini map is going to be a teeny bit blurry. So what you find yourself doing is this.
Oh my god! Okay.
And the small mode is way too shrunken down, so text looks a little bit just not good. And also, that doesn't have head tracking. So when you're in the large and the medium version, you move your head and it's independent of the screen. The small version stays locked to where you're looking, so if you bobble your head a little bit, it shakes the screen. I think if they had a mode that was head tracked, that was somewhere in the middle between small and medium size, it would be much, much better. The cool thing is that you can actually run Xbox One and PC with a little bit of changes, but Xbox One, you can run through it, but it'll only give you that small locked, with your head still tracking on it version, which I hate. So I haven't tried. So
you use the PSVR as a pass-through box, so you can feed another HDMI thing into it. You could feed a Blu-ray player, for example, into it.
But since the size settings are something that is in the PlayStation's UI, you only get the small version, which locks to your head tracking, and it's too small. It kind of looks like they took a 1080p video and then cropped it down, so the text is all kind of blurry and hard to read.
Okay.
As far as watching movies, I found that movies are a little bit difficult. Something about real action, maybe, and just the way that works out is a bit difficult, but I did watch... I want to say 6 or 7 episodes of Rick and Morty season 2 with that thing on my face. But then again, that was me laying back in my bed with like pillows placed correctly. And then once you sit down and you fiddle a little bit, because you can reset the screen area with pressing the options button while you move your head. If you find a very good angle and then you relax and you can see the screen well enough, it works. But it does take a little bit of time to get used to. I would say if you don't have a very large screen in your house, it is cool. But if you have a decently sized TV, there's really no reason to put the PSVR on your head and go through all the problems with that.
So you're not reaching for it. Are there? I mean, what about something like a movie like Dunkirk or the next Star Wars or something, some sort of set piece action based movie? You were saying you didn't like the live action, but is there any like a space movie or an IMAX experience? Would you watch some kind of maybe 15-minute type VR experience?
There is things called like besides games and applications and little things you can use like Hulu. There is a few VR centric apps. Like one's called Little Star Cinema, one's called Within, I believe, and then there's another one, Jinx maybe or something they call it. But those have, if you've been online or you've seen 360 videos, like one that's been recent has been Conan. The Conan show will do 360 videos. There was one for Alien Covenant. There's a new one for Annabelle Creation. There was one about the Mummy. It was how they did this anti-grav thing in the space or in the ship. Yeah. Not the ship. The plane. Oh god, I can't talk. Those things are cool, but they look about 480p, so you never really feel like you're in there. It is just cool to be able to like look over and be like, that's Tom Cruise. You know, those things are interesting, and those things I liked quite a bit just because of the novelty. And some of those things, I was watching a Dunkirk VR experience actually. And some of that made me feel like if there was a very high quality movie that was made for VR specifically, it could be done. But as it stands, it's very novelty, and then once you're done, you're done. Like, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's get back to the games. What kind of game experiences are you finding works the best here, and are you finding any hidden gems?
The game experiences that I found most common and also have been working the best are these move experiences that are kind of, you're seated in one spot, like Job Simulator, where you're behind a desk or you're in a mechanic station. You're just moving and touching things that are very close to you. You can look at them in your hands and that kind of stuff. I Expect You to Die is kind of like a spy version of Job Simulator, where they're more like escape rooms. Those things have worked very, very well. Until Dawn worked. Until Dawn's probably one of my favorites, just because it also tracks your arm movement. When you start off the game, it tells you to put your arms out like this, and then when you set it, if you bend your arms, it's bending at the elbow on the screen, which provides a very good sense of immersion. I've seen a few things that do different stuff, but we're at this point now where the PlayStation VR has been out for just over a year, I believe, and as a mainstream VR unit, I think people are finally seeing what works, what doesn't. You're seeing those PC ports that have come and gone. I just reviewed a game called Theseus, which is not a first-person game. It's not a move-controlled game. It is a game you play with your DualShock, and it's kind of like God of War. Your third-person perspective is over the shoulder, and then sometimes your perspective is like a Resident Evil camera angle. Those things are really cool, but we're still early on enough that they're cool concepts, but the game themselves, they're like 1 or 2 hour experiences. They're not that great, or they're just forgettable. But the tech behind it is really cool. I would say the most underrated gem on PSVR when it comes to games that are just so crazy when you're actually in them, it would be Polybius. It's Polybius. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're going to Google that, you're going to get a whole bunch of weird creepypasta and stuff, because Polybius is one of those weird Berenstein Bears things. People are like, this game exists and it was crazy, and then somebody was like, hey, I'm gonna make an indie game, but I'm gonna call it Polybius. But what this is if you take vector graphics, kind of like Asteroid stuff, put yourself in an almost Res Infinite or a Res kind of gameplay thing where you're moving forward and you're shooting stuff, but the game is super trippy. There's so much flashing lights, changes of colors, and so much stuff flying at you that there's about 3 or 4 epilepsy warnings that you have to pass through before you start the game. But as far as games that just absolutely blow you away with visuals and all the stuff coming at you, Polybius is up there. And if you want to play Polybius and you don't have a PSVR, you can. It is a game that you can just play. It has a VR mode. But that that is something that's just absolutely crazy. Really good for like a 10-minute run through a level, trying and showing it out with your friends. Okay. But I think honestly, the best experiences are the ones that have still gained popularity, like Job Simulator. Even though that was one of the first VR games to come out, it still works really well. Those are the ones that I found are the best. But yeah, there's like little ones that are cool here and there. There's also a lot of ones that are expensive and also crap. So it's kind of like figuring out what's good, what's bad, and you have to go through the whole library, et cetera, et cetera.
So speaking of expensive and maybe crap, after a month with PSVR, could you recommend this as a purchase?
Here's what I'm going to say. It's cool. It's not $650 cool, but if you have $650 to spend, you should probably get a Vive or an Oculus. If you don't have the PC to supply that, PSVR is a good mid-tier solution, but you're going to see VR experiences get too difficult. Right now, there's a Rick and Morty virtual reality kind of thing that's similar to Job Simulator. It's only available on the Vive, I believe, and when talked about with the PSVR port, they said there's portals in the game which render two different areas at once, and the PlayStation just can't handle it. Even the PS Pro can't handle it, and that's a year out. So it's cool, but I don't know what kind of legs it'll have. If you have a bunch of money to spend and you want to try out VR, sure. If you're frugal and you're not trying to spend too much money, I'll let you know that it's $650, but then there's so many games that you have to buy into, and if you don't find them for a good price, you might spend upwards of $50 on a game that will only take you 4 hours. There's a game I played called Robinson: The Journey, which is a game you play with your DualShock, and you're this young boy who has found himself on a planet full of dinosaurs. You kind of explore around with your AI buddy, who kind of resembles like a GLaDOS sort of thing from Portal. That was fun. It was cool. It was interesting. Ultimately, it was forgettable. But it was also $50 if you wanted to buy it. I was lucky enough to find a used copy for $17 that I could just return the next day after I beat it. But that's still a $50 title that's only 4 hours long. Right. Job Simulator is just 4 little things you can play, and once you're done, there's replayability to it, but that's still $40. Some of these smaller experiences like Until Dawn, or some of the bigger experiences like Until Dawn are like $20. Batman VR, $20. Those things are great, but when they first come out, they're expensive, and that playtime to value is just not there.
So maybe look for a nice used bundle, like somebody giving up on a musical instrument or their home gym that they didn't use.
Yeah, this is, if you can find this for someone selling it. If someone said, hey, $400 for the PSVR, the camera you need, the Move controllers, Batman, Until Dawn, and Job Simulator, 100%. Yeah, go for it. Like $400. I would say the PSVR is fun enough that if you're kind of the kind of person who buys new consoles at day one, you'd be completely fine with the library and where it's at. If you're one of those people who likes to wait for something to be very fleshed out and have a large library, it's simply not worth it at this point unless you can find it for a damn good price.
If they were going to put out a PSVR revision, a Model 2, or the next gen, what kind of features would you most be excited to see in that second version?
I would say if they put out a second thing, it would definitely some additions to the cinematic mode, some ways to pull back. Because that's the thing with the cinematic mode, it's you can move the screen, but it's locked at a distance, which means you can't push it away. If I could push away things, it would make it way easier. That would be cool. As far as the actual hardware goes, I don't think there's too many needs for a redesign. Maybe some, less wires. Honestly, the biggest issue lies within the hardware itself, the PS4. So if they release something that is like an Xbox One X, like the PS4 Pro Plus or something that has that much power or something comparable to a PC, that's going to do it the best. I think that they're just locked in at this point as far as what the actual PlayStation can handle. I think a lot of the things would be UI adjustments. If they were going to do a whole new relaunch of the PSVR, I think they would probably want to maybe add another option for a second camera behind you. That would help quite a bit. But as the way it works fine. It does its job. I don't see there needing to be too many renditions. It does what it needs to do. And I think they've already spent so much money that we won't see that for quite some time.
Well, there you have it, Matthew. Thank you for your thoughts. You're going to be playing some more VR games. There's going to be more reviews. Check them out on a90skid.com. Real quick, not to cut you off, but if you guys are planning on buying a PSVR, I'm probably going to write up an article. But if you want to know what's good, what's a good bang for your buck,
Until Dawn, Rush of Blood. Even if you're afraid of jump scare games, trust me, the jump scares are not that bad. I mean, there's a few that are kind of annoying, but it's not that bad. Batman VR is a very well fleshed out experience for the price. Like I said, Polybius is a really great indie. And then if you want something to show off to your friends, either pick Job Simulator, if you like kind of more goofy, funny, esoteric kind of humor, or I Expect You to Die if you're more a fan of James Bond, escape room, spy kind of stuff. But those 4 or 5 will definitely get you where you want to be.
I Expect You to Die sounds the most interesting to me. All right, you can check out the more stuff on our channel. Let somebody know about it. 90skid.com for game news, reviews, and a whole bunch more. My Twitter is at GameThinkTalk. And join the 90s Kid Discord server where you can chat about games and all that stuff. And Matt, give me some stuff.
You can find me on Twitter at SGC64Matt, and I also have a podcast. It's called Super Gamecast 64. If you want to find that, it's on Podomatic, Stitcher, iTunes, and of course, I write awesome articles and reviews with this lovely gentleman and my colleagues at a90skid.com, so check that out.
All right, everybody. Thanks. Give us any questions, comments, stuff you might want to have read out on the show, anything you want to see us cover. Until next time, you have a good day. Bye for now.